Page 19 brings with it some really, really interesting things to reflect on. Why do I say that, and why do I seem to say that about every page? Well, one, it's because The Great Divorce is my favorite book. But two, because I actually think that there are some important things that are being communicated here. What is that, Mr. de Villiers? Well, I'll tell you. What's happening in this page is a demonstration of everything that we as human beings oftentimes think that God should do. So let's look at probably about the middle of the page, the paragraph that begins with, "There you go." "There you go," said the ghost with a certain triumph, "asking me to make a plan. It's up to the management to find something that doesn't bore us, isn't it? It's their job. Why should we do it for them? That's just where all the parsons and moralists have got their things upside down. They keep on asking us to alter ourselves, but if the people who run the show are so clever and so powerful, why don't they find something to suit their public? All this poppycock about growing harder so that the grass doesn't hurt our feet now. There's an example. What would you say if you went to a hotel where the eggs were all bad, and when you complained to the boss, instead of apologizing and changing his dairyman, he just told you that if you tried, you'd get to like bad eggs in time? That's a good point, Ghost. I don't know. Why haven't I ever thought about that? What does that mean for us today? Well, why hasn't God just made everything so peachy keen? Why in the world is there still suffering? Why in the world is there a coronavirus? If God is all good and all loving, how in the world could there be this big virus that affects us? Oh goodness, it's the end of Christianity as we know it, or not really. Is kind of the answer. Um, what our ghost is bringing up is the simple problem, or the complex problem of evil that we've spent a lot of time talking about in our class. What is it, and how does it relate to that? Well, in class, you would remember that we describe evil in the same way that we describe something as being cold. That whenever you measure something outside, you don't measure it in terms of how cold it is, you measure it in terms of how hot it is. In the same way, you can't measure anything on earth as to how evil it is. You can only measure it as to how good something is. Evil is simply the absence of good. That's why God, the creator of all things, who is all good, never created evil. But there can, in fact, be an absence of good, which is evil. This is not to say that evil doesn't happen. Evil happens, but it's not a participation in the reality that God creates. It's a perversion of it. That's why all sin is simply a perversion of something that's good. Take your sexual desire, for instance. Any kind of perversion of that sexual desire, which is oriented towards marriage, is a sin. What is it? Is it something that you're creating on your own? No, it's just the slight twisting of something that was good. Take, for example, if you overeat, is your desire for food bad? No, your desire for food is good. It's necessary for your survival. But what is this gluttony thing that we talk about? Well, it's when you stuff your face full of 72 chocolate bars. Did you need the 72 chocolate bars? The answer, even though you say, I wanted it, is no, you did not eat it. Or, for example, if Jamie were to say that, oh, but Mr. de Villiers, I went and got Chick-fil-A and had 16 boxes of Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets. It's like, that's wonderful, Jamie. But one, you should have shared with other people because it's Chick-fil-A. And two, you should have spent time to reflect on, do I actually need the 16 boxes, right? These kinds of sins, both of which are separations from community, are also aberrations. They're perversions of what is good. They're twistings of it and making it into a negative, making it all about me. In the same way, whenever this ghost is saying, well, why in the world didn't they just make eggs that tasted good instead of telling me to enjoy the bad taste of the eggs? Maybe, in fact, it's because the taste of those eggs are better for you. And it's actually a false kind of analogy. Because if you're going to say bad eggs, that would assume that the eggs themselves are not healthy for you. But in fact, we know that the reality of heaven is good for you. It's properly oriented. So maybe a better way of saying it is, if your mom tells you that you have to eat your veggies on your plate, well, obviously you don't like eating your veggies because it would be way more fun to, wait for it, eat Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets. And yet we know that in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle, you should eat your vegetables. Is your mom making you, wanting to hurt you by forcing you to eat your vegetables? No, she knows that the vegetables are in fact good for you. In a similar way, becoming more real, engaging with the grass that hurts to walk on in heaven, that's not heaven trying to punish you or make you eat bad eggs. That's a false twisting of that narrative. Rather, heaven's trying to say, look, you need to eat your vegetables, and you need to focus on what is good, and you need to focus on what is true. That's what we're hearing over and over again from all the saints and from all the angels, right? And that's what we should keep focus on even in the midst of hearing these great doubts that are pointed out by this battle-hardened, this gruff ghost. Okay, and now we'll finish up on page 20, and we'll also cover the beginning of chapter 8 in the next lecture.